Hello everybody, welcome. Today I'm going to talk to you about a project I've been working on for about 8 months. It is a root over rock ficus. I'm really proud of how it turned out. But I want to be clear with everybody, I am not an expert bonsai grower. I've been learning over the last couple of years and I learn by doing. So I watch videos on the internet, things other people have posted. I've learned from that, then tried to replicate it. I've had a little success here and there, and so I want to share those when I have them, or when I don't have them, I want to share those and talk about what I could have done better and learn from them. So let's have a look at what I did with this tree. So it was pretty dark in winter and I really wanted something to do, and I went down to the local nursery and I found this ficus plant. Had lots of trunks in it. It was really nice looking, really healthy. And so I decided I wanted to use it for a couple of projects. Well, the first step in that is to take it apart. And to do that, you need to just really take patience and gradually pull the roots apart, because I wanted to save as much of the good root systems as I could in order to allow it to drape over the rock. The real secret here is to just take your time, alternate between water and using your rake and pulling apart with your hands a bit. And in the end, if you lose some roots, that's okay. Ficus especially are really robust plants that do a great job of growing their roots back. Okay, first off, I'm going to go ahead and apologize for the quality of this video, because it was the first video I ever shot with the intentions of uploading it to YouTube. So hopefully I'll get better at time over this. Right now what I'm trying to do is put enough dirt into the bottom of the pot so that the roots have space to grow underneath the rock. That's going to be important to allow it to really grasp onto the rock. You're going to want to take your time here and get the tree exactly where you want it. Get the roots in place where you're going to want them, because that's where they're going to want to grow. Make sure you get coverage on at least 3 sides of the rocks with good sized roots draped around them, so it can really grab onto the rock with some major roots. Once I get it in place, I'll use the wires to temporarily hold it while I'm packing dirt around it, and then I'll tighten them up later. Next up, I'm going to use wire to hold the roots in place against the rock. This will keep them clinging against the rocks as they form and grow larger. You don't want it too tight that it'll eventually cut the roots in two, but you want it tight enough to hold them against the rocks for a couple of months. After spending quite a bit of time getting the roots in place and getting them held with wire, I'm going to go ahead now and tack the tree into place using the wires running through the pot by kind of running them up it, keeping them pretty tight, tighter than I ordinarily would. This comes back to bite me in the long run because it ends up eating into the tree. You'll see that later. Now that it's all wired up, we're going to go ahead and fill it with dirt. We want to take a lot of care here and take our time to make sure we get dirt into all the crevices and there's no dead spaces or no open air spaces in there. Don't pack it too tight, but make sure it's full. The bonsai soil I'm using has a lot more organic matter than a lot of the soils you see professional bonsai growers use. One of the reasons for that is that this is not a finished bonsai, this is a pre-bonsai. And I found that ficus plants in particular respond very well to having plenty of organic matter in their soil, so I think this one makes a great compromise. To To finish up our initial planting, I'm going to prune a bit off the top. It was at this point in time in real life when we decided to remodel the plant room and add an office, extend it out a bit, and so I didn't take any more videos or take any pictures of the plant for a couple of months, but I did wire it up and put it under some artificial lights. Over the next 3 months, the tree grew so fast and I got so busy that the wires cut into the trunk before I had a chance to remove them, so I took them out one day and wasn't able to film it. Alright, so 2 more months have passed and it's pretty clear this tree is too damn tall. It's never going to have the right perspective like this, so I make a decision that I'm going to have to make the biggest chop I've ever made and cut it down to its 2 lowest branches. Okay, I'm going to be 100% honest here. I'm really nervous. This is a much larger cut than I've ever made. I put a lot of time into this tree and I'm really nervous about how this is going to work out, but you got to do it. Ficus Microcarpa is a particularly robust plant, and I know it's going to do fine. I know it's going to come back from this fine, but it still doesn't shake that unsettling feeling of making a big cut on a plant that you've cared for a long time. I'm going to take some time here to go ahead and get the roots into shape. I want to end up with a nice radial root base, so I'm going to straighten them up a little bit and then pack them with some more dirt and moss so that they will continue some vigorous growth. And I'm going to finish it all off with a little bit of wiring to keep that one branch pointed upwards. It's a little droopy right now. So I'm happy with how this turned out, but I'm a little bit nervous and really excited to see the plant start growing from this big chop. I didn't have to be worried for too long because just a couple of weeks after the big chop, I started seeing some new growth off the main branches. So at this point, we've got some really vigorous growth going on in the canopy and probably in the root system too. What we want to do is allow that vigorous growth to continue. So I'm going to go ahead and move it up a pot. I want to plant it a little bit higher this time so that I have an opportunity to expose the rock and still allow lots of vigorous root growth underneath the rock. So first we'll carefully take the wires off and then we'll take it out of the pot. The entire time that we're doing this, we're going to be very, very careful to not let the rocks drop out from underneath the trees. So you're going to see that I'm holding it from the bottom base below the rocks the entire time. I'm going to remove as many of the root wires as I safely can so that they don't restrict root growth in the future. Once it's in the pot, we'll resecure it with wires, but not nearly as tight this time as we did the last time. I'm trying to be strategic about where I place the roots in the dirt to encourage as much growth of the main roots as I can. Once again, the goal here is not to pack the dirt too tightly, but to make sure it gets in and fills in all the dead spaces. Now it's all covered back up and ready to go. Over time, we'll begin exposing the roots. Our little tree took to its new pot nicely, started putting out more roots. I kept them combed back and used a spray bottle and a rake to try to keep the root base as radial as possible and focus on the main growth of some of the main roots as much as I could. It's been a couple of months since I put it in the new pot and 9 months since I started this project, and I'm really proud of how it's going. You can start seeing a lot of the roots pulling out. They're gathering strength, they're getting bigger, they stand out against the rock. I'm pleased with the color differences between the roots and the rock, and I think it's time to remove a little bit more dirt and see if we can see even more of those roots. As a final step, I want to dress the whole thing up with a little bit of landscaping. So I'm going to use some moss that I collected, as well as some vermiculite along the floor to give it a more natural look and to really help the rock stand out. Okay, after 10 months, what I have is I think a pretty terrific start on a root over rock pre-bonsai. This ficus is performing great. There's several things I want to focus on over the next year. That's going to be to straighten out the root base even more, make it even more radial. I want to focus on growing some of the main roots really strong, really sturdy, and I will also focus on getting a lot of ramification up in that canopy. Make sure you check back in for updates.